Happy Thursday, DevLakers. This is Maxim, your friend and community leader here in the Slack. Thanks everybody for joining us. It's June 23rd. We are recording this, so you'll be able to reference any of the slides after, and we'll be posting them on YouTube and sharing them everywhere else. Certainly, if you have any questions during the huddle today, send them in the chat, send them on Slack, wherever you want to send them to us. We'll be happy to help answer. And we'll be leaving time at the end of today's session for an open Q&A. Today, we have all kinds of exciting topics to cover, so we'll work to be efficient with our time so we can cover all of them. Before we jump into the agenda, let's jump into these first couple of slides. So first, I want to kind of point out and give a few shout outs. So this week, we've had some really awesome people join the community. This is not everybody, so if you're not on this slide, don't take it personally, and my apologies. We'll give shout outs to everyone in due course, but I'd want to kind of point out and give some love to a couple of people in particular. So first and foremost, our friend Joshua, shout out to Joshua. He's been incredibly active on the Slack. He's been incredibly active helping us promote the Meetup, promote DevLake in the community. Has become really a fantastic member of the community and part of the DevLake team here. So shout out and thank you to Joshua. Want to give some credit to Leonardo, who was in the questions channel here on Slack this week. In my opinion, really setting the example of what it looks like to kind of use the questions channel in an effective way, engaging there, getting stuck on something, asking the team, diving right in. So really appreciative of that. Yesterday, we also welcomed Deepak, a really interesting member of our community. He's a really interesting founder in the open source space, really early stage, but already doing some really interesting things. Definitely shares the kind of data-driven mindset that is a big part of our community. So a really great addition to our community here. And then Atarva here, another friend, he's a member of the Scoutflow team. The Scoutflow team are doing some really interesting things to help expand the open source ecosystem. Really interesting group of guys. Also new seed users and supporters of DevLake. So I want to give a quick shout out and fist bump to these people in particular. Like I said, this is not everyone. Next, we have some big moments. It's always a big moment, of course, when anyone joins the community, becomes a part of this. That's always fantastic. It's even bigger when they're a new contributor. And in this case, we have 3 people who have made that leap and have really started swimming in the lake and made contributions to the GitHub. So certainly a big shout out to all of these folks. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for making your contributions. And we're looking forward to seeing more new people making contributions to the GitHub. So if you want to get these kind of shout outs, we'd love to see you on the next presentation. Send me a note. We'll figure out how we can make sure you get your acknowledgement. And for those who've made contributions or for those who've been active, my apologies for you not being on here. We'll get you on the next one. So today's agenda, we're going to cover a lot of really important material. So first and foremost, we have our good old friend, Louis Zhang. Louis, thanks for joining us late your time. For those of you who haven't yet met Louis, he's in the Slack all the time. He's the product lead for DevLake, so certainly a great person to chat with if you have any kind of big picture questions about the future of DevLake, or even detailed questions. Louis is the man for this. Louis is going to provide some updates on the latest from kind of a community perspective on the product, and then also do a little bit of a deep dive on where we are with v0.12, some important kind of feature and kind of pipeline updates there that he'll share. Next, we're going to kind of go into a really kind of important and practical piece. I know a lot of you have been working to get DevLake set up locally, and I know some of you have started really kind of tinkering with developing for it. What comes next, of course, is how do you create different things for DevLake. How do you create queries? How do you create plugins? How do you create connectors? So today we're going to be given this awesome deep dive by Hezheng, lead maintainer of DevLake, as well as the CTO of Merico, who launched DevLake. Hezheng is going to be here, and he's going to do a little bit of a deep dive and show you guys how do you create a plugin for DevLake, something that brings some massive value to the project, and hopefully will be just interesting for you to learn regardless of what you're doing with DevLake. Last and not least, I'm going to go through a quick presentation of a program we're really excited to be pushing forward on. We'll be sharing it for the first time here in detail, the DevLake Junior Developer Evangelist program, a really cool opportunity for those of you who maybe aren't looking to commit code, but want to really support the project, a great opportunity for you to really dive in and make an impact. We'll then leave time at the end for any final questions. So without any further ado, and without taking up any more time, we'll jump into the agenda here with our friend Louis. Louis, thanks so much. Excited to jump in here.
Awesome. Can I share my screen? Yeah, thanks. Okay, can you see it?
Perfect. Yep, we're seeing a good old dashboard here.
Okay. So today I'll walk you through the community retro dashboard. And this will be a default agenda in the following weekly huddles in the future. And as you can see, this dashboard shows the weekly community progress last week. And the data is based on calendar weeks. So the data shown on this page now covers the issues and PRs created from last Monday to Sunday. Yeah. And okay, I'll go into the details. So for community issues, we had 37 new issues created last week, and 3 out of them were created by the community members. And yeah, and so in those 3 issues, only 1 has been answered, has been responded. Yeah, which means we should like increase the response rate, response time in the future. I'm trying to like follow up an issue quicker. Yeah. And as for the PRs created last week, so there are 60 PRs created, and 6 was submitted by the community, yeah, which occupies like 10% of the total. And it's good that all of those community submitted PRs have been merged, and the time to merge is around 1.5 days, which is not bad. Yeah. And as for the contributors, so it's quite average. 6 PRs are put up by 6 individual contributor, and you can see the names here: Snow Moon Dev, Long to Ice, Moon LZL, Mar CMV90, Ben Shen Bushu, and Shubham. Yeah, thank you guys. And you can also see, yeah, and you can also see, yeah, see the contributions by community members here. Yeah, this is the whole history of community contributions. Yeah, and that's the weekly community retro for this week. Okay, I'll just directly jump to the next agenda. Okay,
perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
to quickly jump in, Louis, to give everyone kind of quick additional context on that too. I think part of what we're looking to do there with that quick dashboard walkthrough is, of course, all of that is the DevLake data being analyzed and presented by DevLake. And we're looking to really kind of use that to give transparency for all of you guys, of course, for what's actually happening with the project. And we'll make sure this is something you guys can check in on yourselves. We'll make this link available for you in the future so that we can really kind of use DevLake to help DevLake get better, which is really quite a cool way to do it. So Louis, thanks for walking us through that.
Yeah, so this I've already put the link in the slides, and it's public, so you can visit it by clicking that link. Yeah, and please let us know if you have like you want to see other interesting metrics in this dashboard, so we can put more in it. And we're also planning to put more like community growth related metrics into this dashboard to make it like more abundant, in the future. Okay, cool. I'll jump into the next topic, the milestone v0.12 progress. So this milestone has 3 major goals, 2 features and 1 infrastructure related. So the 2 features are the re-implementation of the config UI to improve the user onboard experience. And the second feature is to introduce team entity to DevLake so that users can analyze any metrics by team. And the infrastructure related issue is that we are adding E2E test to every data source, so that could accelerate our Q&A process in the future, because we have put so many efforts in data integrity test in the past. Yeah. And as for the progress for these 3 major goals, in terms of config UI, we've done most engineering work regarding the new config UI, and is waiting for the integration test between the front end and the back end team. As for the team entity, we had several rounds of discussion in the dev mailing list, which is open. Everyone can see it, and we have came up with like a design proposal, but we haven't started implementation. And the last, the E2E test. So those tests have been added to along with the feature development of the config UI, and is on track. Yeah. And to sum up, so the estimated release time for this version is the end of the 2nd week of July, which means July 15th. Yeah, so we are planning to submit ASF voting that day, and ideally we can get it officially released 6 days after that, which means July 20 or 21. Yeah, and yeah, that's the V0.12 progress updates for today. Yeah, thank you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Louis. Yeah, lots of big things coming along. Certainly for any of you on the call here thinking about making bigger contributions in the future, to give you some extra context, right? Like I always like to think about what's the why behind everything, right? So anything to do with config UI, right, it plays an incredibly critical role, as probably all of you know, in what that user experience of DevLake actually looks like. DevLake is only as good as the data that it connects to. So config UI plays that massive role in making sure that happens, and that all of our users can get up to speed with DevLake. And then the other kind of important piece I want to kind of shine a light on here that Louis, pointed out to here is this teams part, right? Which is, whether it's a big open source project, tiny open source project, maybe it's a Fortune 500 company. All of them have this kind of interest and desire and this need to be able to kind of split things apart, right? Be able to take a look at, not just repo levels, not just branch levels, but perhaps be able to look at, like how do we configure different cohorts of developers or different groups to really focus on and build dashboards, build metrics around. So the development of that is really critical to making DevLake more and more useful for everybody around the world. So some really cool stuff coming. And if you have any thoughts on it, definitely let us know. So Hezheng, thanks for joining us as always. And I'm impressed that you're about to dive into some pretty clever stuff before we're usually awake. So I hope you're as rested as you can be.
Thank you, Maxim, and thank you, Louis. And I'm excited to see some old friends and new friends in today's meetup. And today we'll be diving into how to create a plugin for DevLake. And DevLake won't be interesting at all without all these plugins connecting data sources. And many of our community members has been asking for support for tools like SonarQube, Circle CI, Argo CI, Bitbucket. And we are definitely working very hard to support all the tools that we love. But still, it's a long way to go. So we would love to enable our community members to develop plugins for your own favorite tools. So let's dive in today. We'll show an example of how to create a plugin from scratch. It's sort of a hello world for DevLake plugin. So let me quickly share my screen here. Okay, so the example we are going to use today comes actually from our own need of tracking ICLA. So if you don't know, ICLA stands for Individual Contributor License Agreement. It's an agreement that grants us the permission to use the code to contribute to our repository. And every PR author needs to sign this before we can merge your pull request. So sometimes when we see a new PR, we need to first figure out, has the PR author signed the ICLA or not? If not, then we need to send the ICLA to the author, and has him or her signed the ICLA, then we can review and merge the pull request. So one way to do this is that Apache maintains a list of people who have signed ICLA in this JSON file. So obviously, the easiest solution here is just to go here and then do a search of the username in this JSON file. But since we are doing example today, so we're going to use DevLake to collect the data from this JSON file, cache it in our raw layer, and then extract it into a MySQL table that has two columns: the name of the person and the username of the GitHub. So this is the plan for today, and I'm going to walk through how to create this plugin step by step. So roughly, there will be 4 steps. The first step is to create an empty plugin that's executable, but does not do anything interesting. Second step is to add our first subtask, collect committer. So these subtasks will collect the raw data from that JSON file, cache it in our database for further processing. The third step is to create a table underline tool, underline ICLA, underline committer. So this is the table in the tool layer that can be queried by our metrics and dashboards. And lastly, we want to add the second subtask, extract committer, that actually populates data in that table. So these are the 4 steps we're going to go through. So next, we'll dive into the live coding session, and this will be our first live coding. during our community meetup, and hopefully everything goes well. So let me open up my terminal here and move this away. Okay, let me go to my, is the text large enough for everybody to see? I can make it even larger if needed.
Yeah, I think it's good for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So the first step is to create a new folder in our plugins, and then we can just call it ICLA. That is the plugin name. And then we also want to create some subfolders that's going to be handy, which is the task that has all the subtasks of this plugin. And then we're going to need to create our entry point of the plugin. And then we provided some templates for doing it because there are currently some boilerplate that you need to write. And to minimize that, you can just copy the templates to the plugin folder and then start from there. So the template is located in the generator folder. I'm going to copy paste plugins. The main thing is the plugin main.go template to our newly created ICLA plugin folder, and then rename it to plugin the main.go. And the other file we're going to need just has some helper structs, which is the plugin tasks, task data, and then copy it over to ICLA tasks and task data.go. So now let's take a look at the two new files that we have created. In plugins ICLA. Let's take a look at this entry file first, plugin main.go. So as you can see here, there are some double curly braces in here, and then later on we're going to replace this with our plugin name, which is ICLA. So let me do that first to make it easier to read. So all of this will provide a scaffolding tool to make all of this easier. But for now, we're just going to run a set command and to replace this with a plugin name. So here I'm gonna cd into ICLA and then run this set command. So nothing fancy here, just replacing the strings with our plugin name. So here, going back to our editor. So now you can see here, all of the curly braces are gone and then replaced with our correct plugin name here. So now we can take a look at this plugin main.go file. So you can see here, we defined some functions. These are the interfaces that plugins communicate with our framework. And these are the hooks that will be called by the framework at the right times. For example, the init function is called at the very beginning of registering this plugin into our framework. And this prepared task data is a hook that's called before executing all the subtasks. And this is used to prepare common data that's shared by all the subtasks. And this subtask metas returns a list of the subtasks that this plugin provides, so the frame knows what's available to run. So these are the most important hooks. And then we have a main function just directly execute this plugin when we execute this main file. So this is roughly how it works. So now we have already created an empty plugin file, and let's try to execute this and then see if it works. So I'm gonna run plugins ICLA and plugin main.go. And it works. We can ignore the first line because I already have the logs folder. And then we can see here, we start a plugin ICLA and total step is 0 because we don't have any subtask yet. And everything works, even though it's not interesting yet. Yeah. And so the next step on our agenda is to create our first subtask, collect committer. And this will collect the JSON from our from the data source. So now I'm going to also start with a template. So the template this time will be plugin tasks API collector, and then copy it into ICLA tasks. And I'm going to call it committer collector go. And we are also going to need an API API client for this, because we're going to need to send some HTTP request to the data source. So that one, we also have a template. So we're going to start from the API client and then copy it into ICLA tasks and API client.go. Okay, so we're gonna do the same for these newly created files. You will see here that we need to replace some names to get rid of the curly braces. So let me just run a quick command to do that. Back here, ICRA, oops, plugins, ICRA, and replace all of that. Okay, so now we are looking at this committer collector file, which defines the first subtask. So let's start from line 64. So this is the information that we need to provide to the framework. Defines the name of the subtask, where's the entry point. The entry point basically is how the actual task that we're going to execute, which is this collect committer function. And we'll walk through these collect committer function in details later. But first, now that we have this new subtask, we need to add it to our main function here, so that the framework is aware of the new task. So I think it's called collect committer meta. And then let's try to execute this and then see what's going on here. So yes, oops, need to go back to the root folder first, and then plugins ICLA, plugin main. So I think we're gonna see some error messages. So you can see here, the API client is not defined. So we need to do some preparation work. So we need to create that API client in the prepare task data function. Just need to uncomment this. And that API client is created from here. So I also need to, okay, so that's already here. I also need to uncomment this one. I think that's pretty much it. And let's run this again. So let's see what's the new arrow here. So here, I think we just need to replace the data source. So I think the HTTP request is failing, and we just need to replace it with the actual data source. So we go to our API client. This is the endpoint. We need to replace it with Apache domain, which is, I think, people.apache.org. Oops. Okay. And we also need to go to our committer collector file. And then this file basically just sends the HTTP request to our endpoint with the right parameters, and then handle the response. So here we need to make it, public /icra-info.json. This is the JSON file that we want from our endpoint. And also print out the response. Let's see if we get anything from our API. So here, let's run this again with the correct endpoint. And yes, so this is I think the print line that we just added at line 54 here. So as you can see here, we start a plugin, and then we start executing the subtask collect committer, and then we start the API collection, and then we handle the response here, which is just printing out the response now. and then we end the plugin execution. So everything works so far. The next step is to actually parse the JSON response and then cache it into our database. So for that, I'm just going to copy paste the response handler here to save us some time. So this is going to be, oops. And then need to make the, right, this one. So quickly going through this, we're just creating this new struct that has the committers in it, and then just print out how many committers we're getting from the JSON file, and then return these to the framework so the framework can cache the data in our database. So let's run this again. And then this time we should be able to see in the log how many committers we get from the API. So we are getting 270,000 committers from this JSON file. Okay, so that's pretty much how we can create our first subtask, collect committer, send API request to our data source, get back the response, parse it, and cache it in our database. The next step is for us to create a table in the tool layer and then extract raw data into the tool layer. But before that, first of all, let me check how much time I have left. So Maxim, how long do you think I have for the demo?
Yeah, I think at least another 5 minutes, Hezheng. We're nicely on schedule right now.
Okay, thanks, Maxim. All right, so let's keep going then. So the next step is we need to define the model for the two-layer table. So that's going to be really a simple table, which is just a table with two columns, the username and the name that we collect from the JSON file. So to do that, we need to create, first of all, a folder of models in ICRA, and then create this model file, ICRA models, let's call it committers, okay? Committers.go. And I'm just going to copy paste. I think the by naming convention, I think it's gonna be committer.go instead of committers.go. Is models committer. That's it. Now open it up here and then just paste in the definition. It's pretty simple, as you can see here. Like I mentioned before, there are only two columns, username and name, and both of them are bar chart 255. And the table name is underline tool, underline ICRA, underline committer. After we have the table, we need to add it to we need to create a table by adding it to the init function to auto migrate it to create a table. So here, I think it's gonna be and models ICRA committer. That's the table we just created. And we also need to import what's happening here. And then we modify this to models. Okay, so I think now if we run this plugin again, when the plugin was initiated, it will run auto migrate and then create this table in our database, but it will be an empty table. So let's check that first. So let's run this command. Okay, and then let me open up MySQL workbench, connect to our database, and then verify that we have this table in our database. So let's scroll down to the tool layer and the ICRA committer, as you can see here. So we have the table, and then let's verify that it's indeed as we define it that has columns name and username, and there are some other tables just for the operation stuff. Yeah. So yeah, so the table is created, and the last step in this entire demo is to create an extractor that extracts the raw data and populate the table we just created. So to do that, let's also start with a template. So generator template plugin. This time we'll need an extractor template. Tasks, I think it's a extractor. And then I'm going to give it the name. First of all, plugins ICRA tasks, and let's call it emitter extractor. Go. Okay. And the same old stuff that we need to run our set command to replace the curly braces here. ICRA, oops, plugins ICRA, and replace the strings. Let's take a look at a new file that we just created here. So this file, essentially, we just need to replace the extract function with our own. So this extract function is given the raw data that we just collected as input, and then we can process it and then return the extracted models. And the framework will save the extracted models to the table we just created. And then we also need to add this new subtask to our plugin main in the subtask meta here. So I think this is going to be tasks extract committer meta. So going back here, now the last step is for us to replace this extract function. And to save us some time, I'm just going to copy paste over the code that parses out the JSON and return the model to the framework. So let's quickly read the code here. So really, we're just marshal the JSON into the names map, and then create the extracting models using this map, and then return it to the framework. So I think that's going to wrap up this new subtask. So let's run our plugin again. Oops. Seems like emitter extractor expecting expression. So did I not copy? Oh, so there's this that haven't been replaced yet. So I think we need to run the set command for this one. So let me run this so that we can replace it with the right name. So plugins ICRA and now this one. Yeah, this is a little bit cumbersome, and then we're going to provide a scaffolding tool for this pretty soon. Okay, and then this should fix. Okay, and then let's try this again. Undefined models. So we need to import these in the committer as well. Okay, this should fix this. And then everything works. We can see that after the collect committer subtask, now we're executing the second subtask, the extract committer. And let's see in the database that everything is populated. So we can just do select star from our new table to ICRA committer and see if we have the records. And then you can see this is populated now with all the committers information that we collected from the JSON. And that wraps up our demo for how to create a plugin. So obviously, this is a more of a contrived example. It doesn't get to the more interesting part to utilize all the helpers and SDK that we provide to create plugins. But this roughly gives a rough idea of what are the steps for creating a plugin from scratch, collecting data, caching data, and extracting data into a table that's ready for further transformation or dashboarding. So I'm going to hand over to Maxim for the next agenda item.
Awesome. No, this was really great, Hezheng. Thanks for going through this. And I think, guys, everyone listening and paying attention to this, that probably seems like a lot. It certainly seems like a lot to me, being someone that isn't a professional day-to-day engineer. But I think the really exciting and cool takeaway there is that was less than 20 minutes, where Hezheng was able to kind of show us going from zero to creating something. And as of course, it's something maybe a bit more simple, or maybe with a more limited use case, but fundamentally, all of the kind of key pieces are demonstrated there to make something like this happen. So it's something that hopefully you can learn from. Chat with us about it, because we'd be happy to kind of walk you through if you think of a use case or a data source that you want to work with like that. It's something you can do in a relatively short period of time. So Hezheng, if you're up for sharing the slides, what I'm going to jump into next, and I'll be brief, because I think the key thing that we'll want to kind of discuss will happen in direct messages on the Slack. But I'm excited to talk to all of you today about the DevLake Junior Developer Evangelist program. Now, I know some of you are already familiar with this, and we've talked about it on Slack, but this is moving forward, and we're excited to really kind of get this off the ground. So I want to talk about it in a little bit more detail. So if we jump to the next slide, the key things that I'm going to kind of answer for you guys is, who is this for? What's you going to do? What's in it for you, and how do I join this? It sounds interesting, right? So what is the Junior Developer Evangelist program? So quite simply, this is kind of an internship type program that we on the Merico team are going to be running to support DevLake. And the purpose of this is to really give a framework, give some organization, give a more kind of formal program for any of you who are looking to make contributions to DevLake, but perhaps aren't going to be making contributions directly in the code. So maybe you want to, create some tutorial videos. Maybe you want to start writing some blogs. Maybe you want to host a hackathon or attend meetups. All of these really important things, right, that help the project grow, help DevLake evolve and expand, that are happening outside of the code base. We want to make sure we're really supporting you on that, really enabling it, and building a program for it. So who is this for? Really, it's for anyone who's interested, right? If you are a developer and you want to learn more about marketing, community, kind of partnerships, business development type things, leaning into the kind of developer evangelism side of things, this is definitely for you. If you're a college student and you're looking to explore developer evangelism as a career, I think this is a really, really great program for you. No matter what your interest is, if those things sound interesting, this is going to be for you. What are you going to do? So the Junior Developer Evangelist program, we're going to run the first cohort as a 3-month cycle. And during that 3-month cycle, you'll be kind of working part-time, anywhere probably from 10 hours in a week to perhaps 20 hours in a week. We'll figure it out person by person to make sure it matches your availability, your bandwidth, your interests. But what you'll be doing, we're going to start the program by doing kind of a deep dive on some training, right? So we're going to get you really immersed in DevLake, make sure you understand it as an expert. You're going to be working with me as well as some of our other team to really kind of learn about the process, learn how to be really kind of effective and professional with creating great content, with managing some outreach to engage with developers and influencers in open source. We're going to go through all of that for a week to really kind of make you an expert and prepare you to succeed. After that, we'll all be working together to create things like tutorial videos, to create things like new documentation, to maybe write some interesting blogs that cover use cases or interesting learnings from DevLake. And then of course, we'll also be collaborating with ecosystem players. So finding partners to collaborate with, finding events to be a part of, presenting at conferences even. So these are the kinds of tasks and the kinds of activities we'll be doing in this program. So what's in it for you? Like I said, I want to make sure we're really kind of giving you some structure for this so that you can, DevLake is obviously going to benefit from your inputs. We want to make sure you're going to benefit from this. So if you're part of this program, you'll be getting paid, and we're going to be paying the participants of this through GitHub sponsors. So you'll be compensated for your time. But perhaps more importantly, this is actually going to be a formal program where you're going to be able to come out of this, be able to put it on your Twitter bio, be able to put it in your LinkedIn, be able to put it on your resume that you are a junior developer evangelist for Merico, supporting DevLake, a growing open source project that's being incubated and supported by the Apache Foundation. I think for any of you who are really looking to evolve your careers, this is going to be a really exciting opportunity to really jump to the next level immediately. You'll come out of this program with a real credential, with some real experience. And if you like us and we like you and we're all making progress, who knows, maybe you'll continue and join the team in any kind of capacity, right? So there's a future beyond this also. And that's certainly our goal, is to have this be something that expands our team, expands DevLake, and of course expands your career. So how do you join? I'll be sharing certainly more formal guidance on this so that you can take a closer look. But most importantly, just send me a message on Slack. If this sounds interesting to you, send me a message. I'd love to chat with you about it. Find out what your interests and goals are so that we can align it with that, and I can give you more detailed information. But for those who are going to qualify for this, it's pretty simple. The basic qualifications are, first, that you're in our Slack and in our community huddles. So everyone here, you're already qualified on those fronts. The next is that you're making some kind of contribution to DevLake. So whether you're submitting new code or whether you're simply updating or improving the README or some of the documentation, getting a PR merged is a key part of that. I'll help guide you through that process if you're already stuck or interested. But some basic requirements to be a part of this. But our goal is to kind of get this first cohort of the Junior Developer Evangelist program kicked off in the very near future. I'll be sharing the official start dates on Slack later this week or probably early next, as we kind of finalize all of these kind of last little details. But that's the program in a nutshell. I'm really excited to be kicking this off. You'll have the opportunity to collaborate really closely with me, with Hezheng, with the rest of our team. You'll be making a huge impact. We'll be making sure you get a good credential from it, that you'll learn a lot, that you'll get paid. So I hope it's going to be a really exciting win-win for everybody involved. So thanks everybody for considering that. And I hope that we create a small army here of junior developer evangelists to go take over the world, go help developers everywhere work with more data using DevLake. So that is the Junior Developer Evangelist program. So I'll share more information and definitely DM me if you have any interest or any questions on this. This will be a really fun time for us to work together. So I think that covers all of our key agenda here, guys. We're 50 minutes in. I know we covered a lot today. To recap, today we were able to kind of really jump in, do a deep dive on how to kind of make a plugin, which I think is fundamentally important to evolving DevLake. We're of course joined by Louis, who gave us a great walkthrough of the latest data on our community dashboard, showing kind of how DevLake is progressing. Very fun kind of being able to walk through and measure DevLake with DevLake. We got to see a little bit about kind of what's coming next as far as the next release is concerned. Then of course we dove into the Junior Developer Evangelist program. So we covered a lot of ground today. So with that being said, that covers all of our agenda. So if any of you guys have questions, drop them in the chat or raise your hands. I can also make you a panelist so you can jump in and chat with us on audio if that's easier. But otherwise, that concludes today's session. As a reminder, we are not meeting every week, we're meeting every other week. So our next huddle will be on July 7th, same time, same place as always. Thanks everyone for joining. And if you have questions, Hezheng, Louis, and I will stay on the line here for another few minutes to chat with you guys or to answer any questions. So thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time.